Hello everyone. Today we're going to replace the carburetor in the Poulan 4218 chainsaw. If you've never done this job, this is not too difficult, and I'm going to show you pretty much everything we need to do here. HiPa was nice enough to send us the carburetor maintenance kit for the replacement carburetor on this. And if you've never been to these guys' website, it's really easy to navigate. They have everything that I needed for this saw. I will leave a link for you in the description below for both their website as well as the carburetor kit. Now the kit came along with the gaskets that we're going to need, the carburetor itself. They do provide you with a spline driver to make adjustments to the carburetor if you need to. And everything I know about these guys, we're going to install this thing and see if it runs right first, because most of the time you don't even have to adjust it. That's a plus. But this kit also included 2 fuel filters as well as 2 primer bulbs and 2 air filters, as well as enough hose that you could actually put fuel lines on this twice too. So after you've done your repair next year, if you've allowed this thing to set and the fuel lines or something like that will go bad, you've got enough to do it again. So that's a really good thing. At the time of the video, this was $28 for the kit. Not terribly expensive, and delivered to our door. So that's a nice thing. Let's get started. A couple of tools that you're going to need. I have this little scissor clamp in here, and I'm going to show you what we're going to do with that once we get the top open on the saw. You're going to need an 8mm nut driver, a T25 star bit, as well as a flat screwdriver. Now I have emptied the fuel out of here to make sure that we don't have any kind of gas inside the garage, as well as took the air hose from the air compressor and blew all the sawdust away from this thing and made sure that we're not going to run the risk of getting something inside the engine once we remove the carburetor. And if you've never done this before on one of these saws, this is not terribly bad. And I'll show you as much of this process as I can. I hope you guys enjoy the video. Let's get started taking this thing apart. We're going to start by removing the top 3 screws from our case here. And that's going to give us access to the carburetor. Now these guys can be a little difficult. I go ahead and set the chain brake and try to pull this up and get clearance here in the front. You see how I pulled that brake handle forward and get this lifted up as straight as we can. We don't want to disturb our wires here. And then just kind of maneuver it around until it slides out of there. Okay? And now we have access to our carburetor. And that was definitely ready to replace. Now this is where the 8mm nut driver comes in. We're going to remove these 2 nuts, and you're also going to need the T25 star bit here. And I'm going to start with that screw. Now these shouldn't be overly tight, and when we put the new carburetor back on, we will make sure not to over tighten them then as well. Okay. Now this is where the little scissor clamp is going to come in handy. We have 2 wires back here. Let me see if I can spin this so you can see. And this is for our off and on switch. What I'm going to do is remove the plastic guard here and slide this up, and just use this scissor clamp and keep that guy backing out of our way, but also secure so it can't fall and possibly do damage to our wires. And at this point, this is our choke lever. I'm going to go ahead and lift it up, just turn it sideways a little bit, and you do have to kind of twist it around. We'll see if we can get this guy out of the way. Okay, be really careful not to break that tab off right there. Right now, we're basically ready to roll off here. And again, make sure you don't have a bunch of sawdust or something lying around, because we're getting ready to expose the inside of the cylinder here. Just make sure it's ready to come out of there. Now I'm going to have to remove the linkage for our throttle. See if I can hold this up. And that guy's right there. Okay. I'm just simply going to squeeze on that handle just a little bit. And just work that right off to the side. Okay. See how that come out of there? And we're going to go ahead and remove that as well. And again, that just sets like this. All right, our carburetor is ready to roll back here now. Now we've got our fuel lines. Go ahead and slide this one down. And this is for our primer bulb. I'm going to slide that guy down. Okay. Now our carburetor is loose. I'm going to take our rubber mount here off and put that right back on our motor. And you can see, again, we don't want to get any kind of sawdust or anything inside of our cylinder here. It looks like our gasket's in good shape, and I replaced my fuel hoses last year, so I don't have to do that. The only thing I'm going to need to do is put a new carburetor on. Okay, let's take a look at this before we install it. Now, one big difference I already see here. This is the new one that they have shipped me, and we do have a steel linkage here instead of this plastic from the original carburetor. And as you work your throttle, what's happening here is that's pushing against that. So I gotta say, I think I like the steel linkage better. Okay, now we're gonna install the carburetor. I'm gonna go ahead and put my fuel line back on this side. You normally have a little more to work with here. And also, let this guy turn around, from our primer bulb. I'm gonna have to start the carburetor down on the two studs here in order to get to that guy. Make sure we slide those up pretty far onto the brass there. Okay. Now we're going to make sure that we go back into the rubber boot. And that's pretty much it. As far as the carburetor sliding back on the block here. I'll go ahead and put my choke lever back on. You do have to get that thing just right in order for it to make that turn. We definitely don't want to break that ear off of there. Now putting our throttle linkage back on is the trickiest. Okay, now we can turn that back towards the trigger. And I found it easier to roll the throttle a little bit like this and just clear the end of the handle with our linkage. And you have to kind of hold everything together with two fingers here and get everything else moving. Okay, and there it went. Make sure we can see that. We're attached here and then here on the bottom side. And it's always a good idea, check your throttle and make sure everything's working properly before we start putting anything else back on here. Now we can remove our scissor clamp and ease this guy back around into position. And we do need to put our gasket on before we actually get that seated up. So we can get this guy slid around here. So it can help us hold that. The big thing was just simply, we don't want to over tighten, but we want to make sure we have enough. These little saws take a lot of vibration. Before I start tightening them down, I'm gonna make sure everything's seated up good. Let's double check our trowel again. At this point, we can make sure our choke and our switch works. Get that guy set out there. There we go. Bump it once. Yep, and then went back in. Now our new air filter on. And now our cap. Yep, looks good. Back together with this guy. Pretty much the same way, just nice and easy until you get everything in there. You don't want to gouge any of these wires or anything like that. And it's always a matter of just getting it turned right in order for it to set down. Alright, we'll tighten our screws up now. That wasn't bad at all, guys. Double check to make sure everything's still going to work. Yep, looks good. Well, that wasn't too bad. Get everything in there, take your time if you've never done it before, and a big thing is making sure you don't have any fuel in there that you have to worry about leaking inside your garage. I like the fact that we do have enough extra parts here that should we need to do something to the saw in the future, we'll have that available to us. I know for a fact at the box stores, for just enough gas line and a fuel filter to do your return and your fuel supply is $9. So at a value of $28, and we get all this extra stuff, including primer bulbs and the carburetor, I mean, that's a pretty good deal. I hope this information helps you, and again, I'm going to leave a link in the description below for you for HiPa360.com, as well as the carburetor maintenance kit. And they service a lot of saws and a lot of different equipment. We're going to see if this thing's going to fire up for us. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one, and we'll see what else we can get into.